Today, I feel like something special happened in English language lolly sports, and it's when Los Ratones beat G2. But I don't necessarily feel like the act of one LEC team beating another LEC team is ever that important on February 1st of Split 1, Week 3, Day 2, Game 6. Like, who cares? It's just a cog in some larger season. However, this regular season game felt special. The engagement was insane. Caedrel's co-stream, I think, hit 300K. The YouTube of LEC was at like 70. The LEC was at like 30. So English language alone was around 400,000 viewers for a week 3, day 2 regular season game. I can't emphasize enough how insane that is in 2026 with how much English language interest and viewership in domestic European and North American leagues has just been declining. And there's a number of different reasons for that I'm going to touch on briefly in this video, but I wanted to make it because I just haven't seen viewership like that in as long as I can remember for English language specifically. This game today reminded me, for the real old school people out there, of a 2015 game between C9 and TSM, which also happened in February. It was at the same time as the Super Bowl. And I remember I was casting this game in 2015 and I looked at the Twitch, and the Twitch was at like 400K. And I'm like, holy crap, 400,000 people care more about this regular season game between C9 and TSM than they do about the Super Bowl. And that's when LCS games had consequence. And I feel like this specific game, because of all of the factors around LR and G2, had consequence. And it is so difficult to make regular season games matter. So, reset. Welcome back to JLXP. This is an emergency episode to talk about LR. This is not going to stop the Tuesday Mind the Gap podcast with Vedius, which will also be on this channel, or the Thursday podcast I'm going to be doing with Emily about the LPL. So a lot of other league content is scheduled for this week, but I just feel like this team needs to be discussed and broken down, and these are very fresh thoughts. I wasn't a big follower of LR in their journey through the ERLs, but I am hooked on this story, and I just want to see if there's anything that we can learn to either keep this energy to improve LoL esports, or, take from LR so other teams can learn how to team build and get anything close to the fandom that Caedrel has created. So I have a bunch of notes. I'm going to try not to meander too much, and we're going to get into this topic. So I'm going to go to the past first, and then we'll get to why this specific LR team is so cool. I was thinking, what made League of Legends so special in the early days, 2013, 2014, 2015? Most obvious thing that I need to get out of the way is the game itself was just more popular. If there were more people playing the game, there were going to be more people watching the game. Also, the novelty factor was big. Esports was this niche thing in the West, and I think Riot did esports so much better than anyone else ever, and just that fact made it really cool. But I also think, and here's some things Los Ratones has really tapped into well, it had a grassroots feel back then that it does not have currently. And if you think of the two most popular teams, so for those of you who've watched all esports for a while, probably a lot of people watch this channel because I'm an old school caster, you're going to know these stories. If you're new to the Los Ratones story, I hope, this history is cool for you in your journey in all esports. But North American LCS, the two most popular teams out the gate were COD and TSM. But why were they the most popular teams out of the gate? The owners, and at the time, players for that team, Reginald and Hotshot GG, Reginald for TSM, Hotshot GG for COG, they were two of the most popular North American streamers. And then when TSM became TSM, it was a content machine. They were trailblazers in the content space. They were the first team to make a team house. They would do daily vlogs. They would all stream. And it wasn't necessarily that it was pro players streaming. It was kind of streamers who became pro players, became legit, became the best. And that's what really inspired people and made them follow that journey. With that being said, that magic had an expiration date. Reginald had a bunch of issues. TSM's no longer in the league. Hotshot GG sold the team when franchising came in, became less and less involved, is not involved in the league at all anymore. Also, the goalposts change once you find initial success. Like at first, it's really cool to officially beat CLG or TSM in North America, but then you move the goalposts and TSM said, we don't care about North America. We want to be the best in the world. And then all these North American teams just chased that international play goalpost above all else. And it no longer became cool to be the best domestic team. That actually just lost value. And then it becomes demoralizing year over year if winning domestically doesn't matter and you just get crushed by Chinese and Korean teams. And then once you've moved the goalpost to international, it becomes very hard to move things back to make domestic play matter again. But that's what the LEC has with what they've done here with Los Ratones. This game mattered. So why, right? Why did it matter? Again, I think there's a lot at play here. This is definitely a perfect storm situation that I don't necessarily think is something that you can just replicate, but I think it's still worth talking about. I'm going to go a little bit like inside baseball, inside the industry here, and these are a lot of my personal opinions as well, not necessarily reflecting, anyone else at Riot. So, Caedrel and his channel strategy, I think, is actually really unique. So, for those of you who don't know, when Riot first started streaming esports, they kind of had everything on the same Twitch channel. It was the Riot Games Twitch channel. And then if two leagues were on at the same time, they'd put the other league on Riot Games too. So even the beginning of the LCS, when we do playoffs and we were on the same day for EU LCS and NALCS, the EU LCS would play their best of 5 and the NALCS would wait until they were done so that we could get the handoff on the stream and do NALCS. And then we would go off the air. And then when Korea would start their playoffs, they would also be on the same frickin' channel, right? Or during the regular season, when LCS was over, the channel would just start playing challenger games. And with that consistent channel, I know everything was inflated. All the viewers were crazy back then, but let's say we had 250,000 viewers to end an NALCS day. The Challenger Stream Academy, the one league below LCS, would have like 100,000 viewers with how easy it was to access that channel. But as you can imagine, when esports explodes and every region wants to run its own esports league, the channels get ripped apart. So what happened is no one's allowed to be on Riot Games. You have to be on LCS. You have to be on, EU LCS LEC. You have to be on LCK. You have to be on LPL. You have to be on TCL. You have to be on CIS. You have to be on CBLOL, right? So it broke up to like 13 or 14 different channels. So you kind of had to pick the league that you wanted to follow. And a lot of people did. They picked that league. That's not necessarily like a magic thing that just killed viewership, but I think it makes the overall ecosystem like a little bit harder to track. But what I feel like Caedrel's done in this age of co-streaming, one, co-streaming is actually just a superior experience for the viewer because the co-streamer gets to take everything the broadcast pours into their product and then just throw themselves over top of it. And if you're good like Caedrel, how could it not be better, right? If you really think what's on broadcast is top tier, you just stop talking and let it play, and then you can put your own expertise over anything else. And Caedrel is the best at it. But beyond that, he's incredibly disciplined and incredibly consistent. So I'm going to get to my point eventually, I promise. But look at what Caedrel does. He streams all of LCK, the best region in the world. He streams his home region, the LEC. If LCK isn't on and a good LPL game is on, guess what he's streaming? He's streaming that LPL game. every international event he's there for as well. And you know what? He even streams Challenger games. It just happens to be his Challenger games, the Los Ratones Challenger games in the ERL. But what he's created is he is that old school Riot Games channel where whatever the best esports, whatever the best league esports is, you're finding it on Caedrel's channel. And that's not even to mention how freaking awesome his YouTube is. Like, his highlights are the optimal highlight experience. It's like twice as fast as watching the games with all the action plus all the analysis. No one has ever done highlights better than that. No official, epic LoL skill shot event VODs, whatever. Nothing is as good as Caedrel's highlights. So like, if you just want to experience LoL esports, he makes it so easy for you. Whereas if you want to try and experience it the traditional way, you have to jump the shark in so many different ways. You got to check the LoL esports schedule. You got to see exactly when this game is on. You got to see when the other game is on. You got to pick your leagues. You got to pick your teams. You got to see when they're playing. Bro, literally just follow Caedrel and you're going to see the top tier things. So that's one of the reasons that he is like the pinnacle of esports viewership, because it's just easy to watch his channel and it's entertaining. Okay. So Caedrel, what we've established so far is Caedrel is the channel for all esports, right? And he's involved with this team. And this team has been able to create a grassroots action. So another thing is nationality and regionalism are very important. And this isn't necessarily news for people that follow the LEC, but in terms of experiencing it as an English language viewer, KCorp and MKoi didn't hit for me, but they definitely deserve a large mention for this. So I think they're early blueprints of what LR is doing right now as well. Like, in the same way that Reginald and Hotshot were big streamers who then made teams, like KCorp and MKoi, Ibai, and I think Kometo. I apologize, KCorp fans, if I'm getting this wrong. Please give the history lesson in the comments if you really know for sure to enhance the history lesson. But they created so much consequence within the LFL for KCorp, where they'd bring in these big players, they'd make these big events, but it was driven by like a genuine passion of the person who was making it and like a love for League of Legends and a passion for the game and for the fans, which is similar to what the original TSM and CLG were able to accomplish. So it's very important that the team, the owner, the face of the team feels genuine. Okay. That's the general stuff. But like, it's not like Los Ratones was the only team that did Streamer Team last year. There were a couple of copycats. Ruddy Sack, I think Santorin was on one of the teams that streamed their scrims. Doublelift and Spica and Biofrost tried this near airport thing. But none of them quite hit on all of the things that you need to hit on. So here's a couple of additional things that I think make this specific team feel so special. Because they tie everything together. One, Caedrel. That's the most important thing. Second, Baus is just this amazing fit because he is so clearly streamer first, entertainer first, who's very good at the game, but puts fun before try hard, I must die on the sword, winning esports is the only thing that matters to me, which is like refreshing and low pressure to watch. But then also the fact that he's clearly like giving it his all, and it feels like it's this moment in time where you get to see him in a professional setting before he just goes back to streaming. He's big on YouTube, huge on Twitch. Nemesis is like the hipster fan's hero. Like he, I feel like, was always controversial on whether or not he was a top tier player because he'd win a bunch of games, but he wasn't necessarily popular because he had his own style of playing the game that was definitely more scaling focused, but definitely found some success. So he's always had this pocket of fans. And I think he really understood the concept of this streaming team and was one of the first players, I believe like the first player that started this project for Caedrel, but that's insane. Like, he's so good and also has this like almost cult following. Plus, he's a big streamer. I think Crownie is like a junior version of Nemesis, where I have like small memories of sometimes listening to LS's co-stream with Crownshot, and they would just be like laughing at people's builds and saying that everyone was bad. And it was like really easy to just not like him when listening to this seemingly low tier LEC player just make fun of players trying their best. But at the same time, if you then put your money where your mouth is years later and you're able to win games, that's kind of cathartic. So that's a big thing. And then Reckless as well is, in a different way, brings in a different fan base than Baus would, but is an LEC legend from the early days. So he's the tie-in to the past that I think can bring a lot of these viewers back. And I listened to his interview yesterday, man. It just makes you want to root for him. Like, saying that this is his last chance probably in the LEC, and that he is doing everything he can to just give everything to this moment. It's just super freaking compelling, man. Like, it makes the stage at which he is playing so elevated, because Baus is giving it his all that he's never given before. Caedrel cares a huge amount about this project. Reckless cares so much about it. It's just so passionate that it brings you in. And then another thing is, like, you actually have to win too. That's another key, that like, you can't just be a streamer team. Like, you can't just get a bunch of popular people like Forsen, throw yourself in the LEC and lose every game. That's not going to cut it. Them actually winning 4 games in a row and consecutively now beating MKoi and G2. Like, that's the real special sauce. Like, TSM would have been popular if they weren't the best team in NA for 5 years. CLG wouldn't have reached their peaks if they didn't upset TSM back in 2015 in Madison Square Garden to give you that faithful shall be rewarded moment. So, to recap, I made bullet points of like the perfect storm of why this LR moment is so big. We have Caedrel's insane brand and like 5 straight years of grind and smart decisions he's made around his Twitch channel and his YouTube channel. Huge. We have Reckless and his redemption arc here, playing in Korea, switching to support, making this his last run. The Nemesis redemption arc, as well as Crownshot, is another one. We have Baus, true streamer turned pro. We haven't seen that in a very long time. We also have unprecedented access to this team in the same way that I feel like TSM changed the level of access back in 2013, 2014. Los Ratones changed the level of access that you were ready to see in a competitive team by streaming all their scrims, by streaming all their reviews, by streaming all of their solo queue after their reviews, and being completely accessible the entire time. But then you also have this big underdog story with them starting 0-4. Everyone can doubt them. There is actual beef because of the drama around them even being allowed to play in the LEC, not having to pay in the way that Koi and KCorp did. So real fan emotion battling against each other. The fact that they actually win. And then, I hate to say it, best of ones is a big part of this too. The fact that they beat G2 in that one game, and we didn't get to see G2 run it back and beat them twice and invalidate that first win. There's a level of best of one randomness that is making this cooler. You have to admit it. And the novelty factor. These guys aren't going to be around in this iteration with this level of care and passion. You're never going to get Baus to play 2 straight years of LEC, right? It's just not going to happen. We've never seen academy teams allowed to play against LEC teams with a chance at international competition. Never seen it before. And I think it would potentially be less special the next time we see it. So a lot of that just makes it like a lightning in a bottle moment of time. But then the other thing that you kind of naturally think about with how entertaining and compelling these games are is, and also, I mean, if you're here, I probably should have mentioned at the start of the podcast, I will be breaking down the gameplay specifically on Tuesday with Vedius. This is more of a meta, big picture Los Ratones podcast. Like, where do we go from here, man? There's definitely an element of thinking that, like, it could have been like a lose-lose for LEC, because like what happens next? Like, LEC versus is all that there is. Los Ratones makes playoffs or doesn't. I think it's pretty unlikely they win the split and go to first stand. I mean, it's a lot more likely now in this moment as a prisoner of the moment on a 4-game winning streak. Like, maybe they could win, but like, come on, they're not going to win. Surely they're not going to win. But even so, like, split 2, spring split, like, won't it just kind of feel flat if Los Ratones isn't involved? So, I don't know, man. I do feel like with the viewership that Caedrel is getting, if he really wanted to, I feel like he could find funding to get into the LEC. I have no idea how the franchise agreements are made in LEC. I've never even talked to who ran franchising in LEC, but there's this viewership is unprecedented, guys. I shouldn't say never, but it's been so long since I felt like there was a regular season moment like this, and you want to make that keep going. So maybe they aren't involved. In that case, best case, like, Velia can find a team, Nemesis can find a top team. Maybe Reckless plays, but that's like pretty unlikely, I feel like. So it would be a bit of a letdown. I just feel like everyone in esports chases viewership, right? This viewership is so insane. It has to change the way teams approach roster building, content, fan experience, right? Here's a crazy thought. And this is probably wrong. This is not a final list. I was thinking of like big moments, right? I have 2015 C9 versus TSM regular season game during the Super Bowl. Personally, to me, that felt like a big moment. When CLG beat TSM in the finals of 2015, I think that was a really big moment for Western LoL esports. Fnatic's perfect split, I think, was also a big moment in 2015, and then 2 teams going to the semifinals. Then I have like Fnatic World Final appearance and G2 MSI win. And that was 2019. And then I feel like the next moment was LR versus G2. That sounds stupid, doesn't it? But for English language fans, like how entertaining, how engaged, how emotionally invested people were, how much they wanted to fly onto Twitter, retweet, favorite, how much they wanted to fly onto Reddit, comment, react. I just haven't seen it. I just haven't seen that level of excitement in 7 years. So, yeah. I don't know. I feel like I missed something. I got some notes. Future approach to team building and fandom. Here's what I got off the top of my head. And I'm sure this isn't news to a lot of people, by the way. I'm sure this isn't news. Like, none of this stuff is easy. This is really hard. There's a lot of moving parts. Esports is freaking expensive. The return on investment is low. Sponsors are hard to sign. Player base is down. But with all of that, Caedrel still got 300,000 viewers for a regular season LEC game today. So, just think about it. Like, as fans, I think it is very important that the players on teams or the coaches on teams don't just feel like they are a cog in some greater machine, because that really hurts the fan attachment. The 5 guys in a dream feeling, if you can capture it, is very powerful. And I think the overall story is very important, and appreciating the moment and the level with which you were competing so that the accomplishments matter is also very crucial. So many teams have fallen into this trap. Early TSM, 2016, 2017, saying they only cared about Worlds. Doublelift as well on TL 2018, 2019, saying he also cared about Worlds. G2, probably 2020 to now, saying, yeah, LEC, easy, we must go international. Like, when that happens, it kills the overall vibe. It really does. The level with which you are competing must be held to a high regard so that the accomplishments matter. And then also, like, on the point of being a cog of the machine, just more examples to kind of bring this thing full circle. Like, dude, even G2 in 2019, he's, disappeared from a lot of people's viewpoint now because Riot kicked him out of the league, but Ocelot was a really big part of G2 early on. TSM was a huge part, or Reginald was a huge part of TSM. Hotshot was a huge part of CLG. Even the other more popular teams in the LCS that didn't reach the CLG TSM level because it wasn't like legitimately the owner of the team is also one of the best players on the team, is like Jack with C9 making that team early on and really kind of letting the players run it, which gave it that Five Guys in a Dream feel. And then Steve with Curse and Team Liquid was actually playing on Curse early on, but I think so few people remember that it doesn't hold the same attachment that it did back with TSM and CLG. So anyway, that's all I got. I hope I didn't make too many enemies or say too many stupid things during this podcast. This is one of these podcasts where I am really going to spend a lot of time reading the comments because I want to hear why you were a fan of Los Ratones and when is the last time you were this drawn to a regular season game? And like, can you figure out why this specific team is so compelling? And like, why were the teams of the past so compelling? I gave you my reasons and my 27-minute ramble. So if you made it this far, like, please write me your novels. I want the whole reason for this is I want LCS to succeed. I want to have what the LEC has. The LEC also wants what the LEC has. I feel like they have this like impossible situation right now where they can't just give Caedrel a slot, but he's the most popular team in the league, but he's not even in the league. Like, but the stakes are so high that I feel like things are going to change. That's why I wanted to make this. I think things are going to change. I don't know what the change is going to be. Something magical happened today, and I just wanted to figure it out. Thank you for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and please leave me a comment. I want to learn what your experience is like. See you on Tuesday for Mind the Gap with Vedius.